Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Balancing It All podcast. And today's episode is really cool. I originally did this episode on my first podcast that I had a couple of years ago, and it was so popular that I wanted to re-record it because people just loved it. And so I thought it was really cool. And so I wanted to record it for you guys. And so it's all about the phases of the moon and how our body responds to whatever phase you're in our menstrual cycle. So this is this is from a book that I read that was just amazing, and I just couldn't wait to share the information. And so I kind of want to walk you guys through it and kind of walk you through why certain times of the month you feel the way that you do. It just when I read this book, it was just so cool to me that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Like there are certain times of the month where you feel certain ways. And so it was just really awesome. And I wanted to share the information and kind of just let you know like my thoughts on it and kind of how I see it play out. So let me see if I can find the name of the book for you guys. It like slipped my mind. Um, Let me Google it for you all real quick, just because um, in case you guys want to read the book too. Let me, it's like slipped my mind. So, okay. Yes, I know I should have been more prepared, but this is life right now. Okay, that one's not giving me. Oh, it's called Do Less. I should have known that. Do Less. Uh, yeah. So the book is Do Less by Kate Northrup. Amazing, amazing book. And so I highly recommend that if you guys want to dive deeper into this and kind of learn a little bit more information. So, okay, let's go. So, we're going to talk about our menstrual cycle a lot. So, both men and women both have a cycle with four distinct phases. Women are on a 28-day rotation. Ideally, that's kind of your period cycle. Men, on the other hand, are on a 24-hour rotation. So this stuff all happens to them in 24 hours. That's why they don't have the crazy mood issues that we do. Ours are 28 days, theirs are 4 hours. Men go through all four phases in a day, and a woman, it takes a month to go through all four phases. Society itself is set up to support a 24-hour cycle, not a 28-day cycle. So, like when you hear the terms like masculine energy and feminine energy, like this is where some of that stuff comes from. We live in a world of masculine energy. It is go, it is push, it is do all these things, take on as many things as you want. There's no time for rest, and we're going to climb our way to the top, and we're going to work 12 and 15-hour days. It is all, I mean, the world was run by men, years ago. And so everything is set up on this 24-hour cycle where we as women live in this 28-day cycle where we ebb and flow into different phases. And that brings different feelings and different emotions. So, everybody goes through these phases. Obviously, it's going to be more relevant to women. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the first phase is called your follicular phase. So we're going to do a little bit of anatomy education here. So the follicular phase starts after you bleed during your menstrual phase. So after you start bleeding, that's your menstrual phase. Then we're going to move into the follicular phase where the ovaries get ready to release the egg and the uterine lining is starting to build for a possible pregnancy. So if you're not trying to get pregnant, you're still going through this where we're building that uterine lining. Energetically, what happens in your follicular phase is you are most primed to plan, create, desire, brainstorm, and start new projects. So this, like right after your period, like that's when you're like, whew, I got my energy back. I am feeling amazing. Let's go. I got all these ideas. I want to start doing all this stuff. So that is the time, if you're kind of tracking, that's the time where you're going to feel the best with your energy. When you want to plan, create, desire, that's that follicular phase right after you start bleeding. Then we move into the ovulation phase. So this is where, when we're ovulating, your body is fertile. We're going to try to get pregnant, or we are going to just kind of go through ovulation, getting ready for a period. So you are also energetically and creatively most fertile. Like when you are in your ovulation phase, there's just a lot, you're building a baby, you are getting new ideas, you're putting things into play. And so when you ovulate, you release these pheromones. So there are chemicals that are proven to make you more attractive to the opposite or possibly the same sex. So, during your ovulation phase, you are most articulate and magnetic. People are just drawn to you. There's just something about you that they're like, man, you look really good today, or you're glowing, or you just, man, that was a really good, like presentation you had. It was because you are magnetic. And, obviously the way that God created us, we want to be more attractive to our partner during this time. This is when we, if you are trying to have a baby, this is when you have some libido. This is when, your husband puts his hat on backwards and you're like, oh, you're looking good. So this is the perfect time to go out and kind of spread the word if you're working on something. If you have sales calls, if you're doing presentations, if you're collaborating with other people, this is when you're going to be more receptive and magnetic to other people, just in general. So this was so cool. I learned this in this book. It's called Egg Wisdom, and it's all about female magnetism. So we are going to personalize the egg, and we're going to call her a she. So what happens is when we ovulate, the egg stays in place right where she is. Girl just sits. She does not run around. She does not chase things. She does not, like worry about what other people think of her. Girl just sits and waits. She is just there. She is right in the place where she is, and she just sits and waits for wonderful things to happen. She actually emits a signal telling the sperm she is available. And that signal makes the sperm swim stronger to her. So she's saying, I am here, come get me. So she gets to choose which sperm penetrates the egg. She is selective as to who gets in her inner circle, who is going to be able to affect her. She gets to choose that. The sperm doesn't, she chooses. She has the ability to repair the DNA in that sperm and improve it. If she doesn't like it, she's going to change it. If she doesn't like what's happening, doesn't like what that sperm gave her, she's going to change it. She also has enough nutrients within her, within just that little part of her, to feed her and the sperm until they get down and they embed in the uterine wall. She brings her own picnic to the party. She don't need anybody else to take care of her. She's got enough within her to take care of her and her boo until they embed in the uterine wall and get somewhere where they can have a real meal. She's also she doesn't waste energy. She's not lazy. She is getting ready to make a human inside of her, but she doesn't waste her energy. If it's not going to work out, if she doesn't like what's happening, she's going to die in 12 to 24 hours if she's not fertilized. She's like, I'm done. I'm not wasting my energy. She doesn't fight it. She doesn't freak out. She just says, you know what? This is not the month. This is not the time. I don't need this month. I'm just going to kind of go back and we try again next time. So the egg is good at asking for what she wants, and then she allows it to happen. She is a leader. She is the perfect leader. People come to her, good things happen to her. So this egg wisdom is what we need to think about and kind of envelop in ourselves to become magnetized and have other people be magnetized by us. If we're constantly chasing, if, we're chasing whatever we think we want, sometimes that's repelling, and that we don't, like if somebody's constantly like sending you DMs and like, come on, work with me, sell me this, you should try this, do this. You're kind of like, ooh, like chill. But if you put stuff out there and you just sit and wait and let it marinate and let it come to you, that is that magnetism that the egg has, that egg wisdom. So we all need to tap into our egg wisdom because it is just amazing and perfect and just so cool. I just love that so much. Okay, so then we move into the luteal phase. Oh, girl, luteal phase be coming. And so I I've had this conversation with my daughter because I think this is so important for girls to understand. And so, when she's in her luteal phase, I mean, everything's a 10 out of 10. We got emotions, we've got stuff, we don't like the way we look, and we've got acne and that, all of this stuff. Um, it's funny because I'm like, you kind of try and you don't feel like going out. You don't feel like doing anything. And when she kind of gets in these videos, I'm like, girl, you're in your luteal phase. That's what's going on. But we need to honor that. We need to honor it and we don't need to fight it. So the luteal phase begins after ovulation ends and before you actually bleed, before you menstruate. Your energy begins to turn inward. You made those plans when you were in your follicular phase to go out or to attend this event, and now it's your luteal phase, and you're like, I do not want to go. I want to wear some sweatpants and I want to sit in my bed. That is your luteal phase. So what happens, why we call this luteal phase, is the corpus luteum produces progesterone to make the uterine lining into a soft bed for the fertilized egg. Progesterone makes us feel calm and serene. So I'm learning this with, just like doing some hormone work on myself. And, those of us with a lot of cortisol dysregulation, a lot of anxiety, your progesterone is probably low as you're getting older because that progesterone is what makes us feel calm and serene. So this is the longest phase. This is 12 to 14 days, but it is designed to be longer because we need to kind of rest and chill. So these are times when you're energetically poised to complete projects. You're wrapping stuff up, you're getting, you started some stuff in your follicular phase because you felt amazing, but now you're just like, I don't want to jump on social, but you know what? I can kind of wrap that up and write a few things and, email a few people and just kind of tie up some loose ends. So the luteal phase, um, that's the one that be getting you when you're about to start your period. It is that progesterone. Um, she be working on us and trying to calm us down and get us to rest. And we need to honor that because those are the days, um, where you just kind of feel off. You kind of feel a little anxious, a little grouchy. That is just by design to kind of get us kind of, like in biblical times, people used to, when they would have their bleed, they would go into a tent and kind of be there and be away from people. I mean, we don't have that. We're expected to do all the things. Um, but the luteal phase is kind of a great time for you to be lifting weights. Your earlier phases are better for like, kind of cardio and stuff like that. You may feel stronger where you can be lifting some weights in the luteal phase. So then we move into our fourth phase, which is our menstrual phase, and everybody knows what that is. It's when you're bleeding and you're releasing your uterine lining. So this is the perfect time for rest. Most of the times leading up to your period, you're probably feeling pretty exhausted. And so we need to know these are the days where you take an extra day off at the gym. You sleep a little bit longer. You skip that workout so that you can rest. Our brain is wired for connecting between the right and left hemisphere. What makes you super smart and able to integrate logically and intuitively information and clarity during this phase. So, like, there's been a term, if you've ever heard, like, I'm going to go bleed on it. That means, like, kind of like we talked about, people go away in their tents and kind of sit there, like, and think on it and just really integrate and, think logically through things. This is when your physical energy will be the lowest. Gentle movements. This is when we need yoga. This is when we need just a nice walk. This is when we need naps, multiple naps. This is when we don't feel like going out and we need to go to bed early. And that's okay during that menstrual phase because you're going to come right back up into that follicular phase and you're going to feel amazing. But you need to honor that menstrual phase and honor the, kind of calming of that. So, why this is about the moon is because the cyclical nature of our body mirrors the cycles of the moon. So, even if you're not menstruating, you can actually kind of gauge your mood by the moon. This can still apply because you are still cycling, even if you're not actually having a menstrual cycle and bleeding. You're going through these phases and you will feel it. This also can mimic the four seasons, this is just so fascinating. So if you Google the lunar calendar, you can find out what phase the moon is in. And so that kind of tells you like where you are, like look at your cycle, and then you can see what phase of the moon we are in. So, like the term lunatic, it actually means affected by the moon. So when people, they're a lunatic, they're affected by the moon. They're probably in their freaking luteal phase. So let's go through some of the moon phases and talk about, kind of how the seasons in the moon kind of are tied into our menstrual cycle. So, the first moon phase is called new moon or dark of the moon. And this is when the moon is not visible in the night sky. So, this is the same energy as the bleeding time of the menstrual cycle. So, new moon is basically, the menses. So, we're in the you can call it the first cycle. That's where people get confused. Like bleeding's kind of first, and then we go from there. So think about that. We're bleeding first. It's the new moon. So women cycle with the new moon, even if their bodies aren't being impacted. So, but if they're not being impacted by artificial light. So this is a really, really big thing. Um, Artificial light will affect your cycle. So most women would cycle with the new moon, back in like Bible times and stuff like that. When the new moon was out, that's when people would have their menses. But we are so impacted by artificial light and not outside and not really we're not being affected by the temperature, the moon, the sun. So our lifestyle nowadays doesn't quite correlate, but for some people it can. And this is why people also tend to cycle together when living in community together. You guys see that if you have a daughter, or you were with your sorority, all of you, would be cycling together. Our bodies kind of sync up with the moon or sync up with that menstrual cycle. So new moon, menstrual cycle, great time for rest. So waxing moon, that's when the moon is starting to get bigger. So we've moved from menstrual phase. Now we're back to follicular phase. So this is a similar energy to the follicular phase, this waxing moon. That means we are brainstorming, we're planning, we're initiating projects. We are, we're just killing it. We got all these ideas. Then after waxing moon, we move into the full moon. So full moon typically only lasts one day, but a few days before and after are part of this full moon phase. So this is the same energy as ovulation. We are receptive, we are fertile, we are visible. This is a great time to get out, pitch ideas, strike deals, but there is intense energy with this pull of the full moon. Like you all know it if you are a teacher, if you work, with people, like we see it in our office. Like we had it this week. There was a full moon this week. Lord, there was a lot going on. Intense energy. You can see it in kids, dogs, weird stuff happens. This is that full moon. And the few days before and after, it's that pull of the moon. You may have more energy if you bleed with a full moon. So that's your intuition is kind of on overdrive. If you're bleeding with the full moon, you may have a little bit more energy than if you bleed with the new moon. So the next one is waning moon. So that is after the moon is full, it starts to move and get further away from the sun. So this is our luteal phase again. This is when we just kind of like the sun's moving away, or the moon is moving away from the sun. It's getting away, it's kind of hibernating, it's turning inward. So it's that luteal phase energy. This is when we slow down, we wrap stuff up, we turn inward, we finish projects. And so that's kind of how, if you're not cycling, you can kind of look at the moon, but you can also kind of see what happens in the moon phases with just life and people in general. So this can also be applied to business or projects, and this is called the upward cycle of success. So this is kind of about seasons and kind of what happens with businesses or projects. And so if you're like an entrepreneur like me, or you just have projects that you're doing, sometimes you will see some of this, and it's really cool how it applies. So there's something called a fertile void. So this is kind of how applies to winter, the season of winter in nature. Branches are bare, the ground is frozen, animals are hibernating, the earth needs time to rest. So the earth is in its, menstrual cycle. It is resting. We have our own creative winter. A lot of times you feel anxious if you're not doing enough. You feel uninspired. You can't, kind of finish a project up. It teaches us that we are more than what we do, and there's value in rest. Rest is productive. I always say rest is a verb. Rest is a verb. We have to have this fertile void of rest. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. Sometimes you have to slow down and have this fertile void so you can kind of regroup. And I notice this with me every 3 months. I just kind of need like to get away. I need a break, just to kind of regroup and rethink about things. So the next cycle after fertile void is emergence. So this is the same energy as the follicular phase. So we went from menstrual to follicular, fertile void, emergence. Same energy as the follicular phase with the waxing moon. And this has to do with springtime. It's emergence. Things are growing, things are blooming, ideas are taking shape. This is the time when a project moves from just, in your brain to actually concrete. You start to work on the project. You start to put it together. You start to put that idea together, talk about it. The third cycle is visibility. So this is ovulation. This is the full moon. This is summertime. Things start to move into action. You're visible. You are magnetic. Peak magnetism happens in this visibility cycle. And number 4 is culmination. So this is the luteal phase, the waxing moon and autumn. This is I want my PSL. I want a cozy sweater. I want a pumpkin candle, and I want to just sit with a book and chill inside. So that is the autumn, the culmination, the luteal phase. So I'll go back through that. So winter is, like winter in nature is like our bleeding phase, our menstrual phase. Follicular phase would be springtime. Ovulation is summer, and our luteal phase is autumn. So I thought that was pretty cool. So our bodies know that everything is a circle, and we are coming back around to that circle. So our body and energy and time are cyclical, not linear. So when you feel frustrated, when you feel out of sorts, just know that it's going to come back around and you're going to feel good again. If we honor the phases of our body in the moon, our creativity will get further and faster without having to push so hard. If you're trying to do things in your menstrual phase or in your luteal phase, and you're just pushing and you feel resistant, it's because that is not the phase you should be doing those things, and you need to be doing them in the ovulation phase. And so it's just kind of cool to track that and pay attention and really kind of see what's happening with your body, your mental state in these, phases of ovulation, but also in these seasons of time. And so, I've really put that into play with my business, and I think it's been really interesting and really cool. But I also think it's great for like teens and people learning about their body, and learning about their emotions, and just telling a kid like, oh, you got PMS. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're back in your luteal phase. This is a phase right before you're going to bleed. Your progesterone is taking over. You're going to have 12 to 14 days where, you're just kind of feeling a little bit more calm. You're feeling a little bit tired. You want to kind of turn inward. And so it's just interesting that, we're not taught this stuff and we don't really know much about our body. And so I think this makes us feel like there's rhyme and reason to the way we feel at certain different times. And it's just really cool and interesting. And so if you thought this podcast was great, share it with somebody else, post it to your story. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you see this in your own life, and if it's applicable. And just reach out to me, send me a DM. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, hopefully this was interesting, and I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And until next time, be ready for our next podcast. They drop every Monday. Follow me on social media, and if you are interested in getting in our next 6-week challenge, click the link below for our 6-week weight loss challenge when the next one is going to be available to you. And don't forget to share and subscribe. Thanks so much.